Hello, I'm calling in from Tacoma, Washington. My name is Tandy Rogers, and I've worked for the Unitarian Universalist Association for over 18 years. One of the most often asked about issues in church life is volunteering. How do you get volunteers? And then once you get them, what do you do with them? How do you keep them happy and effective? All that. So I want to tell you some stories. But before that, I want you to tap into your stories. So take a moment, and I'm going to invite you to stop the video in a moment to do this. But think about, when was the last time you volunteered and it was a good experience? Okay. So take a piece of paper and write down what were the things that made it a good experience. Think back to how did you get into that volunteer experience? Did you volunteer yourself, like you wanted to do it, you were seeking it out? Or did somebody tap you on the shoulder and say, we need you to do this specific thing? So take a moment and write that down. And then also, maybe on the other side of the paper, write down a volunteer experience that wasn't so great. And unfortunately, we probably have a lot of those to pull from, a lot of those experiences. So write down what made it not so great an experience. And if you are with other people, I invite you to take the time. There's a lot of wisdom around you, I'm betting. So take the time to compare notes with each other. What makes volunteering wonderful and what makes it not so great? So I'm going to wait right here. I've got my coffee. I'm going to wait. Just pause the video. You do your work, and I'll be here when you get back. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna pause it. Oh, you're back. You're back. Okay. So what did you learn? I hope that you have some insight, and maybe you'll get some more by the story I'm going to tell you. So I volunteered. One of the first things I did was I volunteered to teach third grade Sunday school in my congregation. I don't remember, honestly, if someone asked me to do this. I have a feeling they probably did. We had a lot of energy in the third grade class that I ended up teaching for, and people knew that I was a professional teacher. So I think they thought, oh my gosh, let's get a professional in there. That's fine. I love teaching third grade Sunday school. Third graders are flaming theologians. They have a lot of questions. They don't quite know what to do with themselves. And I suspect that's why a lot of adults kind of back away slowly from that. So we had, in safety, one of the safety policies that we have in our congregation is that there will be at least 2 adults in the room at all times when there are minors or vulnerable people in the room. Great policy to have. But there weren't that many people who wanted to teach third grade Sunday school with me. Maybe it was me. I don't think it was. I think it was the energy. Anyway, so we were needing to recruit more people for third grade Sunday school. You know what we did? I pulled out the directory and I invited the third graders. I said, gather around. Which of these adults would you like in our learning community, in our little religious community here? Which of these adults would you like to be a part of your life? Now, a lot of people, you might be thinking, how would third graders know who any of the adults are? The children in your congregation, they know who most of the adults are more than the adults do, I find. So we made a list. We made a list of about 10 people who they thought would be just great. Some of them, I have to be honest, surprised me. Some of them were like the curmudgeon who heads up the building and grounds. I'm like, I didn't even know that they knew who Bob was, let alone would want to spend time with him. But okay, to each their own. So what we did next is we took that list to our minister. Now, if you don't have a minister, you probably have a pastoral care team. I hope you have a pastoral care team. The people who do the deep work, not the cards and casseroles people, which is really important, and that's another video. What I'm talking about are the people who are called upon when you're having a crisis of faith, or you're having some really big thing in your family. And these are the people that you call up to come sit with you while you cry it out, who come sit with you while you're afraid in a hospital, who come sit with you and when you've just found out that your marriage is breaking up, things like that, the big stuff. They know what's going on. Now, if you don't have that, ask the busybodies in your congregation, because they're going to know. What you're looking for are who is in a good space. So in this particular volunteer, one of the things that we need around our children are spiritually mature people, non-anxious presence, especially in third grade. Because if you've got an anxious presence, that is only going to blow the anxiety out the roof, right? So you need non-anxious presence. You need spiritually mature people. That's probably another video if you're asking what that is. So we went to our minister and we said, can you just, and we don't need to know any business, can you take the list and cross off any names of folks who might not be appropriate to teach third grade Sunday school? By not quite appropriate, meaning they've got something going on in their life that we don't need to know about, but the minister might know, or your pastoral care team might know, or your busybody, and I say that with great love, you know who I'm talking about, that maybe they've got a surgery coming up, or they've got a loved one who's going through a whole lot, and third grade Sunday school is not going to be their thing. So, and I also want to point out that this example is pre-pandemic, so you might need to do some translating. Lord have mercy. So we gave the list to the minister. The minister crossed off the folks who wouldn't be very appropriate at this time. And then we took the list and we went back to the third graders and said, so tell us about the class. What are you looking for in the people? Give us some words. They didn't have to be complete sentences. It could be adjectives. Give us adjectives as to why you want this specific person. So we made that list. Then the adults who are involved in the Sunday school program, the religious education program, we made on a little card, we made a list of how much time does it require to be a Sunday school teacher, how much time for each volunteer position, how much time, what are the roles and responsibilities, what are the expectations. Like if there is I'm thinking of worship associates, if you have a way that you want people to dress to represent the congregation, you would put that in your volunteer job description. So what are the expectations? You want to set people up. You don't want, conflict happens when you have differing expectations. I probably don't need to tell you about that. I'm sure you have your own examples. So on this little card, we wrote those things. And then here's what we did. We sent the third graders out to do the recruiting. So I'll use the example of Bob, the church curmudgeon, who was then invited by a third grader who sat Bob down at the coffee after the church service, sat Bob down and said, we are in need of some adults to be in our Sunday school with us, and we would like you to be one of our teachers with Tandy. Tandy's the other teacher. This is how much time it requires every week. Here are the roles and responsibilities, and here is why we wanted you to be our teacher. Now imagine that, a third grader, one of the youngers in your congregation, coming up to you and saying, we want you, and here's why. Could you say no to that? No. We had a full slot of people, and the more people we had in the room, we had like some folks who were consistently in the room, and then we had some other folks who kind of came in and out. And I love that, because then the third graders would get to know different people in the congregation, and those adults got to know more deeply are flaming theologian third graders. It was a really fun year, and Bob had a great time. Now, some of the things that you might need to know as a volunteer is who's ultimately in charge. Where does the buck stop? Another thing you might need to know is who's responsible. Who do you report to? Basically, who do you report to? Who's doing the actual work? What are you authorized? What decisions are you authorized to make? That's where, especially if your congregation has gone through a lot of change, particularly a lot of growth, how you answer those change because of size dynamics, organizational development. That's just the way it is. So if you can make, this is what I'm talking about, is a RACI chart. Who's responsible, who's accountable, who do you need to consult, in this case, the third graders, who needs to be informed, in this case, oh gosh, the parents and the guardians needed to be informed. We like to inform the whole congregation and pull them into the story as well. So who needs to be informed, those kind of things. So a RACI, when you're volunteering, make sure that your volunteers understand what the RACI chart is, what's expected of them, and then what kind of creative leeway do they have. What else am I forgetting? I'm sure you've got questions, and that I'm quite sure that Linda will be able to answer. In another video, I'm going to talk about leadership and volunteer succession planning, which I'm a big fan of, because here's the thing. Volunteering is not just, oh my gosh, we need to get people to put on this thing we call congregation. Everything we do is faith formation. Unitarian Universalism is what we teach. In your case, in the UK, Unitarianism is what you teach. The congregation is the curriculum, and the wider world is our classroom. So in that case, volunteering is a form of faith formation. It's a form of religious education. And I'm a big fan of passing that around, of creating a kind of culture where people can make mistakes, can learn from them, can be mentored. That's another form of faith formation. Can learn a little bit more about religious community and what it means to be a Unitarian. So pass that goodness around, create a culture where people can make mistakes and can learn from them, where people can make mistakes and then learn who do they need to talk to in order to fix it, and not be embarrassed by it, because we're all learning, right? One of my great teachers, Meg Riley, says, we're always in beta. And that is certainly true for these times. So I'll see you again in another video where I will talk about leadership succession planning. Thanks.